Two friends, Alan Dale and Jerry Carew, who grew up just a few streets apart in St. John's East End, have been separated by Canada's geography for 3 decades. They came together virtually during the pandemic to chat about like-minded interests. Alan lives in PEI and Jerry in Newfoundland. Thriving in remoteness has been a common theme for both of them during the pandemic. Gale Force Winds, the podcast is the result.
And welcome to Gale Force Winds. I'm Alan Dale, Jerry Carew. This time's behind the camera, you can't see him, in St. John's Harbor, on board HMCS Oriole with the commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Rob Pelton. Are you still a Lieutenant Commander, Rob?
I am, for the time being.
You should be a commander. Let's see if we can get Rob promoted out of this. Rob, you brought your ship in here to St. John's. First time Oriole's been in this historic port. Tell me what it was like sailing through the Narrows in Oriole.
Well, for me it was pretty special indeed. I tried to I was looking up at Signal Hill and Fort Amherst and just going in here trying to capture the moment, and it was really fun for me and also for the crew.
Yeah. Tell me about this crew you got on board, Rob. I mean, we've met a couple of them here today. They're pretty engaged people.
They're bonding well, and that's what the ship does. It brings people together, and they're having a great time. We before we came into to St. John's, we set our sails just south of Cape Spear. We turned off the engine, and everyone was up on the decks, just living the moment, right? Living the moment, sailing past St. John's. And it was a fantastic feeling.
Yeah, Rob, I mean, it's so much exciting times for the Navy right now. New ships on the horizon, solid leadership all around, right? You being one of those leaders, so congratulations on that. What would you tell people that are looking at the Navy as a potential career right now?
It is, it brings you to places like this, St. John's. I started doing this as just kind of like a summer job, and now I'm here, and I've been full-time for quite a while. It has really changed my life. It is a great experience. Every day is different, and it's just a wonderful experience all around.
Yeah. Well, listen, Rob, thanks for your service. Thanks for bringing this ship into St. John's. Thanks for introducing Newfoundland to some of these crew members. It really means a lot to the city, and it means a lot to the Navy. Well done, mate.
Oh, thank you very much.
Cheers. Rob Pelton's the only guest to be on Gale Force Winds twice. What an honor, Rob. Cheers. Winds, I'm Alan Dale in St. John's Harbor, talking to 2 crew members off the HMCS Oriole, Ashton and Aaron. Ashton, where are you from?
I'm from good old Durham Bridge, New Brunswick. Small country town. It's about as exciting as it sounds.
Right.
Bridge, yeah.
How about you, Aaron?
I'm from Montreal, Quebec, actually.
Awesome.
Right
Canadians.
Oh, yes.
Almost.
Go Habs, go.
Good. Ashton, tell me about your favorite Navy experience to date.
I'll have to say I did a deployment down in West Africa. We were able to visit a school there and just giving the kids the school supplies, playing basketball with them. It was one of the best experiences, and I'll always remember it. It was awesome. Wow. Awesome.
How about you, Aaron?
My favorite experience by far has to be sailing on HMCS Oriole. When we had the sails up and running, the ship keeled over. Everyone's just enjoying the upper decks, enjoying sailing, and just having a good time on the seas, especially with the view of Newfoundland.
That's fantastic. Aaron, if you were talking to somebody considering joining the Navy, what would you say to them?
I would say it's a great opportunity to travel the world and get paid at the same time.
Yeah,
you learn a lot, and you have great experiences. You make good friends too.
Right on. And Ashton, if you were talking to somebody walking into the recruiting center in New Brunswick right now, what would you tell them?
It's similar to Aaron, but I would also say that seeing the different cultures and the communities, great experience. You'll never forget it, and you do build such great relationships with people.
This is your Canadian Navy, and they're wonderful people. Thanks very much. We're on location here, downtown St. John's Harbor, on board Canada's oldest vessel, HMCS Oriole, and what a pleasure it is. Jerry, how are you today?
I couldn't be better. Here we are, downtown St. John's. The sun is splitting the rocks, so I always joke about the weather, but at least we actually can get out here now. The sunshine is really just something else. The setting, the ship, and this gentleman who I'm looking forward to getting to know. Al?
100%, Jerry. It's what a great pleasure to be on board HMCS Oriole, 100-year-old sailing ship, and this is the first time it's been in St. John's Harbor. With us is Scott Ferris. Scott, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, Alan, absolutely. Jerry, pleasure to have you on board, gentlemen, without question. And yes, I'm Acting Sub-Lieutenant Scott Ferris. I am the Public Affairs Officer aboard HMCS Oriole. I get to wear two hats on board because I'm also a deckhand as well. The coxswain on board here has very clearly stated there are no passengers on Oriole. Everybody's got to have a role. So even though I'm a public affairs guy, I've got a sailing background that makes me dangerous enough to be able to pull a halyard and lift a bumper when I need to. So yeah, we're glad to have you on board here, and this is Oriole's historic first visit to St. John's Harbor.
Okay, Scott, you're not the youngest fella on board the ship. Tell us a little bit about your journey to get here.
That's right. Actually, yeah, at 55, I turned 55 this summer. That makes me technically the oldest guy
join
on
the
board.
55 club.
There we go. That's right. Yeah, double nickels this summer. And yeah, my story goes back, I spent the better part of my career in marketing, communications, business development, and found myself back in Prince Edward Island in 2016, working with the provincial government there. And there was a bit of change in government as things happen, and was let go from the position I'm in without cause. And it's always rough, you're in your 50s and something like that happens.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I'm sitting there, wallowing in my coffee at a local coffee shop, and I'm noticing, of course, everybody's online and in a coffee shop, as they would be. And it's like, well, of course, what happens, Google, what happens when you're 50 and you let go? Your life is changing. And there were all kinds of articles that I started to find. But of course, they all had a common theme. And they said, don't complain and don't whine, but tell everybody you know. Yeah. And so that's what I started doing. I said, hey, look, this has happened. It's a thing. And if you've got a small project on the corner of your desk, maybe I can help out. And sure enough, things started coming at me, little pieces of work, and gosh, the next thing you know, fast forward a year from that date, I've started my own company, I'm working from home, and I'm doing what I love doing, and I get to do it from home. At the same time, too, I had been doing some work with a lady whose husband is a captain in the Navy, Captain Alex Grant, and he says to me, if you still have that interest in the Navy could really use some of your skills and talents. My biggest hurdle mentally was, of course, thinking, gosh, well, I can't do basic training at 52 years of age. I'm not going to join the Navy at 52. It's not going to happen. But the more I thought about it and the more I realized I had the time, I'm working for myself now, so I could schedule things to be able to go do it. And so I did. And there was a bit of a hiccup there. I went to do a Reg Force basic training course and ran into some pneumonia issues, so had to step away for a second, the better part of about 3 or 4 months. Came back, finished basic at 54 at Camp Vimy in Quebec, and voila, my Navy career gets launched. And so ever since then, I've been at HMCS Queen Charlotte, based at that unit in Charlottetown, and helping out in a variety of different roles. The Navy is a fantastic organization where if you do good work, it just means you get more work. Yeah. And I'm telling you, that's been the case for me. And I'm really happy to have been able to do it. I get to balance, as a reservist, I get to balance, my private work that I'm still able to do with opportunities within the Navy. And this particular opportunity to come on board Oriole for, the better part of 3.5 months is honestly, for me so far the pinnacle, because this is great.
Scott, that's an awesome story, Al. I think when I did basic, I was 17 years of age. You breezed over that pretty quickly. It was not easy at 17. You did it at 50.
I was 50 when I finished basic. I was 54. Yeah. So you're right. It wasn't easy. I mean, I've always told my wife that I'm in shape, and she says, "Yes, round is a shape. Good for you." But yeah, you need to be in decent shape for sure. But quite honestly, it's the mental challenge. If you can get through the mental challenge, and it's a team experience, right? You go to basic training, and you're not an individual anymore. You're part of a team, and the faster you can realize that, the faster you will succeed.
Scott, stay on the team theme with me, if you will. What's a team like on Oriole? That must be pretty special.
It really is, and I won't lie to you. When I came on board Oriole, I'm coming on as a junior officer, but B, also a public affairs officer, and I'm coming into an environment where we've got a lot of bosuns, we've got buffers, we've got a coxswain here on a 100-year-old sailing ship. I wanted these people to know that I can help. I have a role to play, yes, for sure. But I can pull a halyard. I know how to tie a bowline. I know how to tie a reef knot, so on and so forth. And I won't lie to you. Immediately, this crew was welcoming. They're like, "Yep, okay. We know if you got here, then there's a reason why you're here." Yeah. And so there's no need to have to prove yourself. This kind of stuff. Everybody's got a role. Everybody fits in. And this crew particularly has been just fantastic to work with. Very welcoming from the get-go. And the bond, quite honestly, since I came on board in June, just keeps growing in strength.
Yeah, and I love that the way you describe that welcoming feeling. Like the Navy somehow can take you in and give you that big warm embrace, much like the city we're in right now can give you that big warm embrace. Tell me what that feels like to be welcomed into such an institution like the Royal Canadian Navy, and what the Navy means to you right now.
Yeah, I mean, even if I think back to my experience, in basic training and from signing up at HMCS Queen Charlotte, even, you felt that family connection right away. You felt that you were joining something bigger than yourself that was giving you a new purpose, that was giving you some great opportunities. You go into basic training, again, you're meeting a whole bunch of new people. But immediately, the platoon that you get into, that working platoon, it's a bond right away. And those connections are still there to this day. I mean, I've had the fortunate chance to travel back, to a few places in the Maritimes over this COVID period, run into those people from basic training, and the friendships are still there. And I can already see that same thing's going to happen with this group from Oriole. And it will, we've said it already, it's going to be, there'll be a little bit of a tear shed in September when we have to split this team up, when the sailing season is over. Yeah. And but I'm gonna lay the foundation right now. If there's a chance for me to get back on board Oriole to finish up this 100th year celebration by going to the Great Lakes next year, I'll put my hand up. I'll jump at the chance for sure.
Sign you up, for sure. So Scott, that's where you came from. You're in the moment right now. What does the future look like for Scott Ferris, both in the Navy and otherwise? I'm curious.
Geez, that's a really good question. I mean, as I've said, I love what I'm doing. I am honestly finding that I am able to take on more and more within the Navy Reserve as well. I enjoy that balance of being able to keep my, as I say, I have a company back home that I'm still running with, but I am finding the opportunities within the Navy continue to grow. And so there has been a slight shift to doing more within the Navy already. And, it's enjoyable. I love it. It's giving me opportunities I never would have anticipated. And so, again, I got to be honest. If those opportunities were to come along, I think I would have to take them much more seriously for sure and give them more consideration. I think the biggest thing I have to say too, though, is I have to give a shout out to my wife, who has been very supportive of me doing this. And I will use the word that she said when I told her, hey, I have an opportunity to come on Oriole and sail her for the summer. Is that okay? And she said, is it okay? She said, I'm jealous. So, I mean, I have to give her a shout out for that, because, you have to balance, as whether you're reg force or reservist, you've got to balance family life in these kind of situations. And so for her, to provide that support is crucial for sure. But for me in the Navy, I hope there is a bright future. I want there to be a bright future. As I say, I'm trying to do as much good work as possible, because the more good work I do, the more work I seem to get. So that's great.
100%, Scott. Look, we often ask our guests who've had an interesting journey, all of our guests have had interesting journeys, to leave the audience with one small piece of advice. What would that be? What would you say to a 20-year-old Scott Ferris right now? Well, what would that small piece of advice be?
I think the number one thing that I've realized, and of course it is, as we say, we're all in the 55 club here now, that age and experience thing teaches you never embrace negative things when they happen to you. Realize that they're happening to you for a reason. You just don't know what that reason is within the moment. It's going to take some time for that to figure itself out. But recognize, like I say, you know, when that situation of being let go happened to me, it was like, yep, okay. You take a moment, and it hurts. Sure, you wallow in that for a moment, but don't wallow long. Recognize that, you know, the old phrase is, as one door closes, another door opens, these kinds of things. It's really true. The thing is, you have to make that happen. Nothing is going to happen for you unless you take the steps to make it happen. And for me, it was taking the steps of saying, okay, I still have skills, I still have talents, and I still have an interest in pursuing a Navy career. And never let go of those dreams. You know, it was a dream 30 years ago to do this. When I finished university, I thought, yeah, I should look after that. Life just went in a different direction. When that road bump hit, in your 50s, it's challenging, but it's what you do with those challenges and recognizing that you can do things about that. Yeah. We've all faced that situation over the last better part of a year and a half, through COVID for sure. Mm-hmm. And look at what people have done to embrace it. Look at this city, St. John's, for instance, that could have been devastated by that. You look at Water Street now, you look at the pedestrian malls they put in here, the streets are packed, people are back out, businesses are still here, And so we're a resilient species as humans, but you've got to make things happen for yourself.
100%. Jerry, your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm listening to Scott talk, and I'm looking at HMCS Cabot across the harbor here, where I started my working career, and I have, some unfinished business. I was a Mars officer, got reclassified, and believe me, that was painful when that happened, and had the same thing happen in my job during COVID. So, you've spurred a thought in my mind. Jeez, I'm 55. I should re-enlist. Hey, Kelly. Kelly's my wife. But it's just a pleasure to be on board with you, Scott, and listen to you talk in such an articulate manner about a beautiful organization like the Navy. Yeah. So
100%, Jerry. And so, Scott, the Navy is in a growth mode. There's no doubt about it. New ships coming out every month now, Arctic Offshore Patrol vessels, Joint Service Support ships on the heels of that, then the Canadian Surface Combatant. I mean, there is a lot of exciting things happening in the Navy right now, and the future is very, very bright. You're probably not a candidate for a recruiting commercial at 55 years old, okay?
You wouldn't think so.
But what would you say to somebody who's looking at joining the Navy? Here's a guy, you decided to do it late in life, and that's very cool. But what would you say to anybody that's out there thinking about this as a career right now?
We've said this many times at HMCS Queen Charlotte, for instance. I think, and I see it here with this crew on this ship, if people really knew what it was like to be in the Navy, in the Canadian Armed Forces, I would suspect, I of course can speak from a Navy perspective singularly, if you knew what it was really like, I think we would be beating people away at the doors because the recruiting lineups would be so long. The opportunities, like you say, the opportunities are huge. The lifestyle is an amazing lifestyle. Every time, I said I had a lot of sailing experience previously. I had to pay to sail on all of those race boats that I used to be on, or, unless friends own them, and I had the fortunate chance to be on those boats. I'm standing on a 100-year-old sailing ship in the amazing port of St. John's. The historical moment when this ship comes into this port for the first time, and I'm in the Royal Canadian Navy. I'm standing here as a junior officer on a ship like that. Look at me. I still have goosebumps when I mention that.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you may not see it, but he does. He has goosebumps. So, and it's not because it's cold here today.
No. So, the opportunities are very endless. The career opportunities are so broad. And like you say, with these new ships coming on, it's new skills, it's new talents that are going to be needed for those vessels. Yeah. And so it is a tremendous career. So here, as a 55-year-old, what I would say is join earlier, because I here as a retired, former naval officer right now, like yourself, and go, okay, I lived that life. It was a great life. But I'm glad to be living it right now.
Great words, Scott, for sure. Well, what another fantastic episode of Gale Force Winds right here on board HMCS Oriole in downtown St. John's. Great historic port city. Just a wonderful conversation with Scott about the Navy, about what it means to him to be in the Navy. I can tell you the future is bright for the Royal Canadian Navy, not in terms of equipment that they're about to bring online, but also the people. There's some great leaders, some great people in this organization. You should give it a look. If you're somebody out there that's looking at a career change maybe, or even just starting your professional journey, boy, there can't be a better place than the Royal Canadian Navy. When I saw this ship sail in, and Scott sent me a video of coming through the Narrows, and I grew up not far from here, I got to tell you, it put goosebumps on my arms. So listen, well done, mate.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining the Navy, and thanks for your service. It's so good to be back in our hometown shooting this episode on board Oriole, and so real pleasure to have one of the crew members on board with us, Tony Filipovic. Tony, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, first I want to say thank you very much for both having me here today. So my name is Tony Filipovic, and my maiden name is Tony Byrne. So I grew up in Torbay, Newfoundland.
You're not from the Filipovics from Spaniards Bay, are you?
No,
Okay.
Filipovics in Spaniards Bay. I might be the only Filipovic on the island right now.
Yeah.
So to be here, standing here on Oriole as the only Filipovic is pretty cool,
Yeah.
pretty top notch.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Torbay, Newfoundland. My mother's side is the Mannings, and my grandparents had a family. They had 9 children, so there's all kinds of family in Torbay. And my father's side is the Burns up in Conception Bay South. So we're a little bit all over around Newfoundland. So I went to school in Torbay, and I went to Torbay High, and then I went to Gonzaga for a few years. And my cousin Mickey, he's about 6 months older than me, so he was one of my closest cousins growing up. So, and we were close to everybody. I shouldn't say that, geez. But anyway, Mickey came into the back room at Nan's and Pop's, because Nan and Pop lived on, they're on Manning's Hill, which is Country Drive now. And that's used to where the hub of the family always used to go. And I remember being in Nan's and Pop's back room, and Mickey coming in and be like, Tone, because my family calls me Tone. He said, Tone, I got an opportunity. You want to start working? And I was like, geez, what are you talking about? What's the
How old are
opportunity?
you at this point?
I was probably about 16, 15, 16. Yeah. So he said, geez, I got an opportunity. I said, what's that? And he said, well, they're hiring down to Cabot. And I said, Mickey, what's Cabot? And he's like, it's the Naval Reserve Unit, because all the cousins growing up were always in the Naval Cadets. My mother was enlisted as a mechanical engineer in the military, and my 2 uncles, Bobby Manning and Gary Manning, were also enlisted, and Bobby just retired with 36 years of service.
Gary, I think I might know Gary,
Yeah, he was an electrician.
My career goes back, 35 years, so I struggle to remember who I served with, but anyway, yeah.
So he retired as well too, so it's in the family, it's in the family. And growing up, actually, my grandfather, Robert Byrne, lived on the north side of St. John's, and what he used to do as a young child is he used to come down to the harbor when the ships would come in, and he'd sneak onto the ships and move around. So I remember those stories growing up where Pop used to come down, help the hands on deck and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of grew up with it. It was in my blood. So when he talks about this career opportunity, he's like, Jesus, boy, we got some opportunity to go work. So I said, okay. So I started the process. And of course, my mother and father were on board. They said, Tony, yes, my goodness, what an opportunity. You get going.
Yeah.
So we went through the different steps. We did our medical and our fitness test, and my goodness, I can't even tell you. So the fitness test, I was never good at push-ups. And this woman, oh, God love her heart, she was about 7 months pregnant, had to show me how to do a proper set of push-ups. And I'm 16, 17 thinking, oh my Jesus, why can't I do a push-up? And she's got a big old belly on her, and she's doing these push-ups. I said, if she can do it, I can do it. Like, you know what I mean? God love her. She was an inspiration. And so anyway, I went through my processing, and then I went through high school, and in 2004 I graduated high school. And then less than a week later I was off to Ontario doing basic training. So during my training, my mother, Joan Manning, she worked down at the Quality Inn here just down on Chippewa, and she used to work her full day in housekeeping, and she'd come home at the end of the day, and then she'd come running with me.
Really?
And she went through the whole process with me. And we got to remember too, like, I wasn't off the island very often. Like, I was only off the island prior to that twice to go to Nova Scotia with my Aunt Myra, who lived in Bridgewater. So Mom did all this training with me. A week later after high school, I go away to Borden, Ontario to do my training, and I'm like, oh my goodness, nervous as anything, right? Just nervous. And we show up and they get us going, and then this big old, his name, it's failing me now. His nickname is Moose. We call him Moose, and he's always got a smile on his face. He's over here at Cabot, actually.
Mark Nickel.
Right, yeah, there you
Mark
go,
Nickel,
Mark Nickel.
Mark
Nickel.
Nickel. We don't know Mark
I've
Nickel,
heard of
do
him,
we,
but
Alan?
Anyway, go ahead.
Mark, if you're watching this,
So he came on the bus and he said he gave us our orders, and I remember sitting there and being like, is this what I'm in for? And then anyway, long story short, I'd call my parents every day. I'd be like, Mom, I don't know if I can do this. And she said, Tony, one step at a time. One step at a time. You can do it. Same thing with Dad. One step at a time. One step at a time. And then my true test in basic training was my cousin Stephanie lived in Bowmanville. So my mother came up for graduation to watch me graduate. She went through all this. Of course, she had to be there to see it, right? Proud mom moment. Right. And of course, I couldn't not have her there. So we were up on weekends, and we were driving back to Borden, Ontario to go get ready to stand on the parade square. And my roommate had lost her key.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said, so-and-so, you can have my key because I'm away for the weekend. We don't want you to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So anyway, I shows up late, and they're all forming up on the parade square. I said, geez, I don't got my key. But if I had to have my key, I could have got dressed and got out on the parade square. But I didn't have my key. So here comes, at the time, Petty Officer Nickel. And he said, Jesus, Byrne, it's all right. Don't sweat it. It happens. You'll get through it. Yeah. So anyway, I had to go meet the chief that day.
Yeah.
And he explained to me the severity of not being late. Things happen, but you're going to have to do a punishment. So anyway, I swept the parade square. And it took me a few hours because the parade square is not teeny tiny.
This is in Borden still?
This is in Borden still.
I've been there.
So
I can't even remember the parade square.
it's huge. Huge.
Shocking.
So anyway, full story, full turn of events. Here I am. Petty Officer Nickel tells me, you got to do this. I do it. And coming into St. John's on Friday, who's standing on the jetty but Chief Nickel. So it was a full swing. So that moment and that moment in time, I was like, my goodness, because it's a small world in the military, but also such a big one. And you meet so many wonderful people in your career, and then to meet them years later, and you pick up like nothing else started. So Mickey, back in Nan's and Pop's back room, got me going, and I'm telling you, I wouldn't change a thing for a day.
Amazing story, Tony. Tell me this: as you sailed in the Narrows.
Oh yeah.
Thursday, Friday. When did
Friday
you get
morning.
Friday morning.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that felt.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's so hard to explain. It's one of those moments where you want to, you just grab your heart and you just process it. Like I came down here, like my uncles when they were sailing in with their ships, Bobby and Gary, they would come in, and I'd be standing there at the age of all the way from 6 and younger up to older, and watching the ship coming in and being like, oh my goodness, this is the coolest thing. And now here I am on the 100th-year-old sailing vessel, HMCS Oriole. Magnitude moment, because here I am on the 100th anniversary as Chief Bosun coming into my home port. And my father was able to come down on the jetty, Tony Byrne, and my two aunts were down here on the jetty as well, and my stepmother. So I'm telling you, when I got alongside, because you step up when you're coming in, the lines are getting ready, you got to put on your buffer hat. Like, you got to make sure everybody's safe, everybody's doing their job. But I'm telling you, when I saw my father, I was like, there's my dad! And then everybody's waving. Like, it's just those moments in your career you'll remember them a lifetime. Absolute
you're
lifetime.
right, and for me, that happened in 1986, I believe.
Oh, year I was born.
Oh, yeah, and I remember sailing in. But there's a lot of, just tell our listeners what, there's a lot of formality in terms of entering a harbor, standing at attention. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes.
That is something I remember, and it's the formality of it, Alan. I just really, it's something special, isn't it?
It really is special because it's the pride that you hold within yourself, and the pride that you hold in the Royal Canadian Navy, and the pride that you hold standing on the vessel that we're standing on. And it just lifts your shoulders up and puts them back and puts that stiffness in your backbone. And you just take it all in. You're standing at ease. Your people are watching you come in. They're waving you, taking your pictures. And then we come to attention and pay respects to the war memorial here down in St. John's. So it's those moments as you're passing behind Cabot Tower and your shoulders are ready to go and people are taking your picture and you're just so full of pride and the patriotism of being Canadian in the Royal Canadian Navy on a 100-year-old sailing vessel. Yeah. It's huge. It's absolutely
I'm getting
huge.
goosebumps now.
Oh, yeah.
There's an awful lot of history sailed through those narrows, Alan.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes.
No, 100%, but nothing like this ship.
No.
There's never been a 100-year-old Canadian Navy ship come through the Narrows, and you guys were the first ones. Yeah. That's fantastic. But Tony, I want to take you back.
Yes.
The night before you came into St. John's, you're off the coast, you're running up and down the coast, and you're from Torbay, as you mentioned.
Yes.
What happened the night before you came into St. John's?
Oh my goodness, it was a moment that I may never have again, and it was the first one I had, and oh my God, I couldn't get the smile off my face. It was like Christmas morning. So we came in, we were making our way up the coast, and we were in Bay Bulls, and then we were driving past St. John's, and we saw all these whales. Yeah. So we took the opportunity to watch the whales. They were breaching and waving, and to see the young sailors, like the smiles and the experience of witness to that is unreal. So we watched that for a little bit, and then we made our way up further, and we were going to go into Torbay. And so as I'm going into Torbay, I'm pointing everything out, like, there's where my grandparents live.
You went into Torbay? I did not know
that.
that.
Into the harbor. Yeah. We didn't go in too far just because of the wind. It was like a channel. It was a tunnel of just wind. So my aunts were expecting us to go in. So I had called ahead of time and said, hey, listen, we're anchoring in Torbay. What's the chances of getting a feed of Mary Brown's?
And
this is not a product
to the owner. However, listen, I spent 30 years in advertising. I might go visit the owner, Mary Brown's, after this.
So anyways, we realized the captain was bringing us into the harbor, and he said, Buffer, I apologize. I did my best, but the winds are just too much. Yeah. We can't go to anchor. I said, can we still get our Mary Browns? He said, yes, we'll still get our Mary Browns. So anyway, we stayed off at the point, and then my aunts were on standby because we had to call and pre-order because we got 60 pieces of chicken. That's a lot of chicken. So anyway, we launched the Zodiac, and then I was able to get in the boat because I'm not sending anybody else. I got to go in. Yeah, so we got into the boat, and we went into Tapper's Cove. So when we went into Tapper's Cove, they were waiting there. My two aunts, Sheila and Anne, were there, my uncle Spock, and my cousin's son, Blake. And it's the first time I've ever met Blake because I haven't been home in 5 years, and Blake's 3 years old. So, oh my God, the look on his face, and I'm like, I'm just as excited as you are. Oh, it was unreal, absolutely unreal. And my aunt looked at me and she said, I hope you enjoy your feed. And she said, if Pop was here today, he'd be so proud of you, because my grandparents are Loretta and Randolph Manning in Torbay. And we were so close growing up. And that moment when she said, Pop would be watching you and so proud of you today, I was just like, oh my God. It's quite emotional and quite moving. And to be able to do that and to sail in and remember the moments that we had on the beach, walking around, just playing and growing up as children, it was remarkable.
You know, as you talk, I'm thinking, Alan, about COVID homecomings.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
there's
another COVID homecoming anywhere in the world like what you just described.
Oh, it was remarkable.
100%. And Tony, we always ask our guests to leave the audience with one small piece of advice. You've had a incredible journey in the Navy, there's no doubt about it, and we heard a little bit about it, and I'm sure there's a whole lot more you could tell us. But what would that piece of advice be to people that are listening to this from you, that little journey that you've been on already?
My piece of advice is always reach for the stars. Yeah. The sky is the limit. One step at a time, one day at a time, but never fail to reach for the stars, because there's so much out there to do, so many people to meet, and life experiences to have. And I'm in my 17th year now, and the experiences that I had to go to Beaumont Campbell, Vimy Ridge, to do the 9 Megan March, and from running with my mother to join the military and being at basic training, calling my parents and say, geez, I can't do this, and they say, Tone, one step at a time. You always reach for the stars. Right. Yeah.
Jerry, your final thoughts on that?
Well, I tell you, you know, just listening to your story and the passion and just enthusiasm you have for this
is wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
And just congratulations to having such a wonderful career.
Oh, thank you so much.
Tony, it's a very exciting time right now in the Royal Canadian Navy, and great ships being built right now, Arctic Offshore Patrol vessels, Joint Service ship, support ships behind that, and then the Canadian Surface Command. I mean, there's a lot of exciting things going on. Great new equipment, great people in this organization. You named Mark Nichol. I mean, if you want to talk about leadership, Mark Nichol, in my opinion, typifies leadership in the Royal Canadian Navy. Shout out to Mark Nichol for us, eh?
Hey, Moose!
Everybody knows him as Moose. But I mean, it's just an exciting time to be a part of it. What would you tell people that are looking at the Navy as an option right now? What would you say about the Navy?
I would say to do your research and stay true to what you believe in and what you want to do for life. I am very happy with the career and the path that I chose. I love being a bosun. It got me here to being a buffer. But you really want to, so many opportunities out there, just do your research and see what's available, what you can achieve, because again, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And it's an outstanding organization to be a part of. It really is.
100%. Well, another wonderful episode of Gale Force Winds right here in historic St. John's. And we met the buffer of HMCS Oriole right from Torbay. What a great story. Thanks very much, Tony, for joining Gale Force Winds. It was absolutely our pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.